So, good morning, and as always, thank you for coming out earlier to hear my seminar. The title is Adversity and Challenges: How This Unexpected Path Can Lead to a Meaningful and Productive Life. In the light of the last two devastating hurricanes, Helene and Milton, it's hard to see how anything remotely beneficial can come from such adversity and challenges. Only God knows why such devastating things happen. Regardless of what causes adversity and challenges, we have to find a way to deal with them. I hope the information I'm going to share can shine at least a little light and give us some hope and some tools when hard things happen to us. When Ron mentioned adversity and challenges as a part of a sermon he gave in July 2024, it generated a lot of comments, and we had a really good discussion. I didn't think much more about the topic right away, but behind the scenes in my brain, there must have been a lot of activity. One morning afterward, I woke up and a download of thoughts and ideas about this subject were pouring into my mind, so I knew this was going to be a topic for a seminar. I'll present the information I found, and at the end, I would love to hear what your thoughts are. I'm going to focus on 4 areas. 1, a basic snapshot of some of the history of how human beings think about challenges and adversity. Also, how people view that today. Number 2, what we can learn from failure. 3, how doing hard things, or things that are hard to do, changes the brain and makes people more resilient. It helps people develop more willpower and resist temptations. And number 4, the spiritual connection and our walk as Christians dealing with adversity and challenges. Discussions and written text have been around a long time on this subject. When I began the research on adversity, the term Stoicism came up, so I looked into the connection between those two terms. Stoicism is not based in Christianity, so please understand I am not recommending that we become Stoics. However, it does share some principles and values with Christianity. Both emphasize virtues like wisdom, courage, justice, and temperance. They both promote love, forgiveness, and compassion toward others. Both place importance on personal reflection, self-improvement, and striving for a virtuous life. Some of the historical writings about Stoicism show how men in the past viewed adversity and challenges. As I mentioned, Stoic philosophy is built upon the foundation of courage, temperance, justice, and wisdom. I'm going to define these 4 values from their perspective. Number 1, courage. Courage is the idea that one can be strong in the face of adversity. Stoics believe that challenges and adversity are a good thing in life, not because they are comfortable, but precisely because they are not. Seneca writes that no man is more unhappy than he who never faces adversity, for he is not permitted to prove himself. Again, the idea is not to be happy with adversity, but to recognize that there are things we can change and things we cannot change. The idea is to shift our focus toward the things that we can change. The article made the point, courage comes only when we have faced adversity. Courage does not come from triumphing over adversity, but from facing it. Temperance. Temperance is moderation, nothing in excess. It is the deliberate actions one takes. It is self-control. Minor adjustments in our lives can drastically affect our trajectory if practiced over a long period of time. Justice. Justice is the core virtue of the Stoics. It is the drive to do the right thing, which influences courage, temperance, and wisdom. And then wisdom is the learned experience from practicing the virtues. You cannot learn what you think you already know. Wisdom is a measure of following the wisdom of knowing when courage is called for, how much is too much or too little. So I wanted to give a little bit of background for that, for what I'm going to read now. So I'm going to read some of the thoughts on my topic from the first book of the Dialogues of Seneca, written around 63 to 65 CE or AD. Quoting, "Who is there who, provided he be a man and have honorable ambition, does not long for due employment and is not eager to do his duty in spite of danger? Is there any hard-working man to whom idleness is not a punishment? We see athletes who study only their bodily strength, engage in contests with the strongest of men, and insist that those who train them for the arena should put out their whole strength when practicing with them. They endure blows and maltreatment, and if they cannot find any single person who is their match, they engage with several at once. Their strength and courage droop without an antagonist. They can only prove how great and how mighty it is by proving how much they can endure. Good men ought to act in like manner, so as not to fear troubles and difficulties, nor to lament their hard fate, to take in good part whatever befalls them, and force it to become a blessing to them. It doesn't matter what you bear, but how you bear it. It is the privilege of great men alone to stand under the yoke, the disasters, and terrors of mortal life. Whereas to be always prosperous and to pass through life without a twinge of mental distress is to remain ignorant of one half of nature. You are a great man, but how am I to know it if fortune gives you no opportunity of showing your virtues? You have passed through your life without meeting an antagonist. No one will know your powers, not even you yourself. For a man cannot know himself without a trial. No one ever learned what he could do without putting himself to the test. For which reason, many of their own free will expose themselves to misfortunes which no longer came in their way and have sought for an opportunity of making their virtues, which otherwise would have been lost in darkness, to shine before the world. No tree the wind does not often blow against is firm and strong, for it is stiffened by the very act of being shaken and plants its roots more securely. Those which grow in a sheltered valley are brittle, and so it is to the advantage of good men, and causes them to be undismayed, that they should live amidst alarms and learn to bear with patience what is not evil, save to him who endures it ill. Now let's bring this into our present time. When we look around in our world, we see so many areas where people are drawn to challenge themselves or watch others challenge themselves. Proving our strengths and abilities to ourselves and others is so much a part of being human. Schools have sports programs and compete with other schools on into professional sports. And then we have the Olympic Games. One website listed 150 reality shows where people choose to challenge their abilities. Some of those names are Survivor, The Amazing Race, American Ninja Warrior, The Biggest Loser, The Great British Bake Off, America's Got Talent, Britain's Got Talent, Alone, The Skills Challenge, are a few of those. The news is full of drama. Movies without a challenge or some level of drama would not hold our attention. The challenge exhilarates life. We put ourselves through tests to see what we are made of. The anticipation of the outcome, the reward, draws us through the wilderness journey to make it to our destination. The view from the mountain top draws us up those rocky cliffs. The wilderness can be physical, mental, or spiritual. When we choose to answer God's call, we accept the challenge to override our human desire for an easy life. The path to follow Yahshua's teachings and to become like God is not easy. We accept the invitation to be like God without knowing what obstacles will be in our path. We decided the hardships are worth the reward. We have assurance that we will receive help to complete the journey, and we accept the challenge. Let's look up some Bible verses about the adversity and challenges we face in life. So I'm going to quote them, but I'll be reading them. 1 Peter 4:12 and 13. 1 Peter 4:12 and 13. Beloved, do not be surprised at the fiery ordeal which comes upon you to prove you, as though something strange were happening to you. But rejoice insofar as you share Christ's sufferings, that you may also rejoice and be glad when his glory is revealed. Romans 5:3 through 5. Romans 5:3 through 5. More than that, we rejoice in our sufferings, knowing that suffering produces endurance, and endurance produces character, and character produces hope. And hope does not disappoint us, because God's love has been poured into our hearts through the Holy Spirit, which has been given to us. We can feel great joy and gratitude receiving a gift, but the joy from accomplishing a difficult challenge feeds our soul. We enjoy the satisfaction of challenging an equal. It is not the same when we win against someone of lesser ability. I had a dream before we had our first daughter. In my dream, I did not go through labor and delivery. All of a sudden, my newborn was in my arms. I felt shortchanged because I didn't experience the entire process. Not that I wanted to suffer, but labor and delivery were part of the experience, and I had missed it. Life is full of challenges and obstacles to overcome. Each time we face a difficult situation, we have the opportunity to learn more about ourselves. In doing that, we develop resilience. Those who face challenges on a regular basis tend to be more successful than those who don't. Developing these skills and abilities helps people cope with whatever life throws their way. Adversities can be difficult, but they don't have to be debilitating. With the right mindset and support group, these challenges can be dealt with. It is a common observation made by older people that they regret the things they did not do more than they regret even the mistakes they did do. This lines up with the book, The Top 5 Regrets of the Dying by Bonnie Ware, that Ron talked about earlier this year. The reason is that many of us have a fear of the unknown. We get too comfortable in our daily routine, hobbies, and habits. The opportunity to grow as a person passes us by. As a result, we never get the chance to expand our knowledge through new experiences. Sticking to the same things every day sounds like a road to a boring life. Stagnation. People are just plain scared to leave their comfort zone. The related reason for avoidance of new endeavors is a fear of failure. No one wants to fail. And as hard as it is when we try to escape that, we will all face failure at some point. It's a part of our lives as human beings. Failure is the second area that I'm going to cover. Let's look at failure through a different lens and see what we can learn from it. Everyone faces challenges in life. How we respond to those challenges can have a profound impact on who we become. When we overcome a difficult situation, we often emerge stronger, more resilient. By learning to embrace challenges, we can open ourselves up to limitless personal growth. Adversity is the greatest teacher of resilience. The impact of failure on our personal growth is like a crucible where our character is tested and refined. Through these trials, we unearth the depths of our inner strength. Failure often prompts a reevaluation of our goals and priorities. Do our objectives align with our true desires and values? We are forced to reflect on what truly matters to us. The impact of failure can refine our problem-solving skills, help develop patience and perseverance. It can help us to become more flexible. Being adaptable in life situations is very beneficial. Paul addresses this in Philippians 4:11 through 13. Philippians 4:11 through 13. Not that I complain of want, for I have learned in whatever state I am to be content. I know how to be abased, and I know how to abound. In any and all circumstances, I have learned the secret of facing plenty and hunger, abundance and want. I can do all things in him, Yeshua, who strengthens me. When we fail, we have to weigh the risk and benefits of our decisions. It helps us make wiser choices. It takes time to work through challenges. The resilience it builds helps us stay committed to our goals, even in the face of adversity. Failure can humble us and foster gratitude for the opportunities we do have. Adversity can be transformed into the opportunity for success. Success is not just about achieving a goal, but the lessons and growth experience that we learn along the journey. Our failure and subsequent growth can inspire others who are facing similar challenges. We can relate to the struggles they are facing and share our experiences and insights, encouraging others to persevere. To grow despite the hurdles we encounter can create stronger interpersonal connections with others. Going through tough times can often reveal who our true supporters are. We can choose to strengthen our support system for the future. A growth mindset, excuse me, is the belief that you can develop and improve your abilities through dedication and hard work. The impact of failure on personal growth is instrumental in fostering this mindset. When faced with failure, individuals with a growth mindset see it as an opportunity to learn and grow, rather than a reflection of their innate abilities. This shift in perspective encourages continuous development and ultimately leads to achieving greater heights. The identity that we hold drives the actions that we take and the results that we get. So the identity that we hold, who we are, drives the actions that we take, our choices, and the results that we get. Another way to say it is a positive shift in mindset leads to a shift in daily choices, and this leads to significantly better results in the long run. Our mindset is extremely important. The lessons we gain from difficult challenges can propel us toward a more resilient, compassionate, and fulfilled life. We will grow and become a more interesting person and a more valuable family member. I believe it will have an important impact for us as children of God. Never give up. As Thomas Edison once said, genius is 1% inspiration and 99% perspiration. So let's go to James 1:12. James 1:12. Blessed is a man who perseveres under trial, for once he has been approved, he will receive the crown of life, which the Lord has promised to those who love him. So I'm going to share some excerpts from an article by Eric Cloward. The title is, There Are No Problems, Only Choices. Let's see if his perspective can be helpful. So quoting, what if there were no problems in your life? I don't mean that you don't have things that are challenging, but what if, rather than fretting about something and framing it as a problem, you could just look at something as a choice to be made? The first principle Cloward mentions is amor fati, amor fati. And that is a Latin phrase that translates to love of fate or love of one's fate. So quoting, it's a concept that encourages people to embrace all aspects of their lives, including suffering and loss, and see them as necessary or good. The idea is that everything has a purpose, and that no matter what happens in life, it's good for something. It's about embracing a situation and making the most of it. Let's look at James 1:2 through 4. in relation to this principle. James 1, 2 through 4. Consider it all joy, my brethren, when you encounter various trials, knowing that the testing of your faith produces endurance, and let endurance have its perfect result, so that you may be perfect and complete, lacking nothing. Now back to Cloward's article. Amor fati is often a hard concept to embrace. I think that most of us are happy to embrace the good things and just try to tolerate everything else. But there are a few reasons why loving your fate is one of the best things that you can do to let go of worry. The first reason to love everything that happens to you is because it's happening to you. The fact that you love it or not doesn't change that it has happened or is happening to you. Your loving or hating is just your reaction based on your judgment of it. So since it's happening anyway, why not love it? Second, if you can love everything that happens to you, then everything is an advantage. Nothing is a disadvantage or something that you can't learn from. Since everything is an opportunity for you, you become anti-fragile. A simple example. If you are short, love the fact that you are short. Don't lament that you aren't tall, because it's a waste of time and cannot be changed. Then find all the advantages life gives you for being short and use them. Or let's say your boyfriend or girlfriend breaks up with you and breaks your heart. You can hate them and feel like they ruined your life. You can be bitter and hurt. Or you can understand that there are reasons that the relationship didn't work out. You can appreciate all the good things and then think about what you've learned. You can go into your next relationship a bit wiser. Another principle Cloward mentions is to not have an opinion on things you can't control or things that do not need your attention. Once you have an opinion on something, you have something invested in it. So be stingy with your opinions. When you are able to see things as choices, then you are more present. You aren't stuck worrying about things that may happen in the future because you are focused on making choices in the present. When you see the world through the lens that life is about choices to make, then you take action. You are focusing on what you can control. If you get stuck in making a decision, make a small one. Just test it out. Sometimes we just need to get started moving. We can change our minds and move in a different direction if it doesn't work for us. Making choices and taking action helps our lives to flow better. So I'm going to move into the third area, which is what happens to the brain when we have hard things to do and things we go through, like adversity, challenge, and failure. New cells in the body either begin to decay or they become more vital. These cells choose their path based on the signals they receive and what we demand of them. If we are sedentary, our brains signal our cells to decay. But if we exercise, our cells get the signal that we need them to be strong and healthy. Likewise, when we refuse to challenge ourselves, it's like we are telling something inside of us to decay. But if we do things that challenge us, we too become more vital. Recent research has some surprising findings that might change how we look at willpower. Scientists found a significant portion of our ability to control ourselves and resist temptations is genetic. Of course, there are other things that have an important impact other than the development of willpower, like the environmental factors of our upbringing, our life experience, and our personal choices. The good news is that we can train our brains to develop greater willpower. So then, information from a different study. A recent meta-analysis found genetics can significantly influence how much willpower a person has. The research, which looked at data from over 30,000 twins from different countries, suggests about 60% of our ability to control ourselves is inherited. Lisa Feldman Barrett, her team offers evidence that the part of the brain called the anterior mid-cingulate cortex, plays a crucial role in managing our tenacity and willpower. The acronym for the anterior mid-cingulate cortex is AMCC. The AMCC is a brain structure that sits in the front medial portion of the brain and wraps around the head of a thick bundle of nerves that connects the brain's two hemispheres, which allows them to communicate. The AMCC acts like a control center in the brain. It's involved in making decisions about what actions are worth our effort in terms of the energy we need to spend on it versus the rewards that we will gain. It's connected to many parts of the brain, helping it to process, information about how our body feels, makes plans, and decides what to pay attention to. This makes the AMCC key in preparing us for action and efficiently using our energy to achieve what we want. The AMCC is linked to various behaviors. It's associated with reduced feelings of not wanting to do anything, apathy, with grit and determination, and with deciding to keep going, even when things get tough. Essentially, it's involved in weighing the effort required against the potential reward and pushing through challenges. We can boost our tenacity and willpower by working out our AMCC like a muscle. Whether it's physical exercise, learning a new instrument, or picking up a new language. This brain area enlarges when people resist temptations or push through unwanted tasks, indicating its role in developing willpower in any area. The brain has high plasticity and can improve or diminish based on the smallest of things. That is why most experts recommend that you start your day off with some simple task some simple productive task, because it is likely to cascade your day into a highly productive one. Some examples would be: make your bed, do some journaling, get some exercise, and if you're really brave, take a cold shower. So I do make my bed every morning, not because I knew about this and was trying to grow my brain, but when our kids were little, we had a water bed, the kind when one person gets in this side, they send a wave to the other person, they get a bounce. The kids loved playing in the water bed. So I made a rule: if the bed was made, they could not play in it. And so I still make my bed. We don't have young kids at home, and I don't have a water bed. And I don't expect it's growing my brain, but it does start my day off really well. My bed is done, it's organized, and my day seems more organized. So the important part here is that you do something that you do not want to do. It should be difficult for you to do whatever task that you are setting out to do, because that is what grows your AMCC, or that part of your brain. As soon as that task is no longer difficult, you will no longer receive the growth benefit from it, because your brain has literally developed in size. Another factor that can help our brains love doing hard things is dopamine. This information came from an article by Daniele Rambelli, How I Tricked My Brain to Love Doing Hard Things. We probably don't have a problem, and I'm quoting, we probably don't have a problem playing video games or browsing social media on our phones. But what about a half hour of studying? That might be hard. However, some people seem to have no problem studying, exercising, or working on their projects regularly. How do they do it? When we are constantly exposed to pleasurable activities, our brains get used to the rush of dopamine and craves it more and more. This can lead to dopamine addiction, where we are constantly searching for more and more dopamine-releasing activities. Dopamine is a neurotransmitter that helps control the brain's reward and pleasure centers. It is responsible for the feeling of satisfaction with completing a task or indulging in a piece of chocolate. We have to take action and reset our brains to release dopamine when we discipline ourselves to do hard things. If our brain receives signals that a task is pleasurable or rewarding, it will encourage us to do it. If it receives signals that a task is unpleasant or unrewarding, it will discourage us from doing it. The key is to make our brain send positive signals for activities that are both challenging and rewarding. Reinforcing positive habits can help build willpower and motivation. We need to set realistic goals and track our progress. Reward ourselves for completing tasks and achieving goals. It helps to take breaks, get enough sleep, exercise, and eat a healthy diet. Challenging our minds with stimulating activities can help reset our brains to send out dopamine when we choose to do hard things. I'm sorry, my voice is just crackling today. Okay, now for the fourth area, which is the spiritual perspective. God could have created us as robots, but he obviously didn't. He gave us free will, and he's watching what we do with it. God is in total control, but he allows the dark side to be there. I don't think that's by accident. In Job chapter 1, we know the story of Satan appearing before God. In Job 1:8, God says to Satan, "Did you notice my servant Job? There is no one on earth as faithful and good as he is. He worships me and is careful not to do anything evil." Satan replied, "Would Job worship you if he got nothing out of it? You have always protected him and his family and everything he owns. You bless everything he does, and you have given him enough cattle to fill the whole country. But now suppose you take away everything he has. He will curse you to your face." "All right," the Lord said to Satan, "everything he has is in your power, but you must not hurt Job himself." So Satan left. We know from Job chapter 2 that later Satan was allowed to cause sores to break out on Job's body. He was in agony, but he remained faithful to God. After Job went through this test, God abundantly blessed him. God allowed Job to be severely challenged. We are also allowed to be challenged. It's painful, but we grow from these challenges. We see growth as a model in God's creation. That seems to be very important to God. If something doesn't grow, then it decays. In the parable of the talents in Matthew 25, we see what happened to the man who buried his talent. In Matthew 25, verses 14 and 15, a man is going on a journey, and he leaves his servants in charge of his property. The Bible says he trusts them to take care of it. He has a close enough relationship with them that he believes they are capable of doing the job. He also feels he knows them well enough that he gives them the appropriate number of talents for their ability to handle their job. The man with the one talent had negative things to say about his master. He was afraid of him and afraid to risk trying to grow the talent given him. Matthew 25, 28 and 29. Matthew 25, 28 and 29. In verse 28, we see it says, "So take the talent from him and give it to him who has 10 talents. For to everyone who has will more be given, and he will have an abundance. But from the one who has not, even what he has will be taken away." The men with the 2 and the 5 talents had to take the risk to double their talents. They had to be willing to grow in their endeavors to become profitable. They were blessed for their willingness and effort. So I'm going to share 2 stories with you about real people who endured and overcame hardships. And I'm going to try to say this man's last name. Okay, it's Nick Vujicic. Is an extraordinary individual who has inspired millions worldwide with his remarkable story of perseverance and determination. Born without arms or legs, Nick faced enormous challenges from a very young age. Growing up, he experienced bullying and discrimination, which left him feeling isolated, hopeless, and suicidal. Nick tells that the Australian doctors were extremely apologetic that they had not detected the tetra amelia syndrome and offered his mother an abortion. The turning point in Nick's life was when a school janitor told him he should be a speaker. He was inspired by that conversation to work hard and overcome the ignorance and discrimination he faced. With the help of his supportive family and a deep faith in God, he worked tirelessly to overcome his physical limitations and achieve his goals. He has become one of the biggest motivational speakers in the world, known as an expert on resilience and reframing challenges. Nick has a message of hope for everyone. Nick learned to swim, surf, and even play golf using only his feet. I watched a video, and I watched him jump off of the diving board at the deep end of a pool. It was incredible. I wouldn't dare do that with all my limbs. He can type 45 words a minute with a special device on his toes. He has a small foot on his left hip that helps him balance. He has adapted many daily skills, including getting a glass of water, combing his hair, brushing his teeth, answering the phone, and shaving. Nick is married and has 4 children, 2 sons and twin daughters. He has authored several books, including Life Without Limits. This is a quote from Nick. If you can't get a miracle, become one. If you can't get a miracle, become one. The second story is from Chief Master Sergeant Wendy L. McLean. I'll be reading it from her perspective. I often think about an experience that challenged me and forever changed my life. Air Force Basic Military Training. To understand why BMT challenged me, you first have to understand the person I was before I joined the military. In 1984, I was a college dropout waiting tables at a local restaurant. It was one of the lowest points in my life, not because I was a waitress, but because I had little hope of a different future. That's a tough reality when you're 19. Looking for a way out, I joined the military. My father said I wouldn't last 2 weeks. I couldn't fault my dad for not believing in me because I didn't even believe in myself. I was physically weak and had a history of being a quitter. I passed out my first day of BMT. While I was recovering, the rest of my flight got issued uniforms. For 3 days, I marched at the back of my flight as a rainbow. I remember looking at everyone else that first day. Those other girls were confident and strong. Me, still in my civvies. The truth was painfully obvious. I didn't belong, and my dad was right. In 1984, we ran PT in formation, starting 2 laps and gradually working our way up to 6. I was a terrible runner, and by the 5th lap, I started falling out of formation. I was still able to make my run time, but falling out of formation made one a magnet for unwanted attention. On the 6th lap, I could no longer make my time. While everyone else went to dinner, I headed back out to the track for remedial running every evening. I was miserable, and I wanted to go home. Our 5th week of training was a turning point for me. I had been too caught up in my own miserable existence to notice something. Many of the girls who I thought were so strong that first day were gone. They had given up, but I hadn't. I wasn't the same quitter who had shown up to BMT that first day. I was strong and more resilient, but I still couldn't run. In the end, it wouldn't matter that I had lasted more than 2 weeks, because if I couldn't pass my PT test, I would be discharged. Due to inclement weather, our fitness test was on the last day of BMT, which meant no second chances. We formed up and started running. First lap, fine. Second lap, fine. Third lap, okay. On the 4th lap, I started to struggle, but I was not the only one having a difficult time. We locked arms. No one was going to fall out. We would finish together, even if we had to drag people across the finish line. On the 5th lap, I was dying, and running just one more lap seemed impossible. On the 6th lap, I felt like my lungs would explode. I could see the finish line, but if the other girls had not been holding my arms, I don't think I could have finished. We crossed the finish line together, and I cried for joy. As we stood sweaty and stinky in our day room, our training instructor pressed a basic training ribbon in each of our hands. It was the proudest moment of my life. I was an airman. 1.5 miles may not seem like a big deal, but to me, it seemed impossible. It was my challenge, and for the first time in my life, I stuck with something difficult and finished it. But I didn't do it alone. It's through teamwork we can accomplish just about anything. I didn't just run 1.5 miles that day. I changed my life. and I did it with my new Air Force family. I learned that I am strong, and we are stronger when we band together to never give up, never quit. So I'm going to read Psalm 34:19. Psalm 34:19. Many are the afflictions of the righteous, but the Lord delivers him out of them all. 1 Peter 5:10. 1 Peter 5:10. And after you have suffered a little while, the God of all grace, who has called you to his eternal glory in Christ, will himself restore, establish, and strengthen you. 2 Corinthians 4:16 through 18. 2 Corinthians 4:16 through 18. So do not lose heart. Though our outer nature is wasting away, our inner nature is being renewed every day. For this slight momentary affliction is preparing us for an eternal weight of glory beyond all comparison. Because we look not to the things that are seen, but to the things that are unseen. For the things that are seen are transient, but the things that are unseen are eternal. 1 Peter 1:6 through 12. 1 Peter 1:6 through 12. It's talking about the inheritance waiting for us. Peter says, in this rejoice, though now for a little while you may have to suffer various trials, so that the genuineness of your faith, more precious than gold, which though perishable is tested by fire, may redound to praise and glory and honor at the revelation of Yeshua. Hebrews 12:1 and 2. Hebrews 12:1 and 2. Therefore, since we are surrounded by so great a cloud of witness, let us also lay aside every weight and sin which clings so closely, and let us run with perseverance the race that is set before us, looking to Yeshua, the pioneer and perfecter of our faith, who for the joy that was set before him endured the cross, despising the shame, and is seated at the right hand of the throne of God. My last story for you is more like a parable. I have read this story on occasion for many years, and there are a few different versions of it. Some of you I know some of you have heard it, but I wanted to share it with all of you. Okay, the story of the Chinese farmer. Long ago, there was a widowed Chinese farmer. The farmer and his only son labored through the cold winds and winter and scorching rays of summer with their last remaining horse. One day, the son didn't lock the gate of the stable properly, and the horse bolted away. When neighbors learned what happened, they came to the farmer and said, "What a sadness this is. Without your horse, you'll be unable to maintain the farm. What a failure that your son did not lock the gate properly. This is a great tragedy." The farmer replied, "Maybe." The next day, the missing horse returned to the farmer's stable, bringing along with it 6 wild horses. The farmer's son locked the gate of the stable firmly behind all 7 horses. When neighbors learned what happened, they came to the farmer and said, "What happiness this brings. With 7 horses, you will be able to maintain the farm with 3 and sell the others for huge profits. What blessing." The farmer replied, "Maybe." The next day, the farmer's son was breaking in one of the wild horses. The son got thrown from the horse and landed on rocks and broke his leg. When neighbors learned what happened, they came to the farmer and said, "What a great sadness this is. Now you'll be unable to count on your son's help. What a failure to break in the horse properly. What a tragedy." The farmer replied, "Maybe." The next day, a general from the Imperial Chinese Army arrived to conscript all the young men of the village into the army. Their assignment was to fight on the front lines of a battle against a terrifying enemy of overwhelming force. The farmer's son, because of his broken leg, was not taken. When neighbors learned what happened, they came to the farmer and said, "What a great joy. Your son avoided facing certain death on the front lines of the battle. What a blessing." The farmer replied, "Maybe." Can we be cheerful and accept whatever situation we find ourselves in? The greater part of our misery or unhappiness is determined not by our circumstances, but by our disposition. The farmer seems to have what is asked for in the serenity prayer. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. In our discussion from Ron's sermon, I mentioned earlier, it seems like God is okay with challenges. That doesn't mean he isn't God. That doesn't change who he is or his character. I don't think God is stagnant. I don't think he wants us to be stagnant. If our lives on earth foreshadow our lives as spiritual beings, I feel we will continue to grow. Yeshua, as the Bible says, learned by what he suffered when he was here. To me, that indicates we have a lot of growing to do. The last two verses I want to turn to are Romans 8:18 and 8:28. Romans 8:18. I consider that the sufferings of this present time are not worth comparing with the glory that is to be revealed in us. Romans 8:28. We know that in everything God works for good with those who love him, who are called according to his purpose. The King James Version says, we know that all things work together for good to them that love God. Whenever we face challenges and adversities or failure, let's try to see it through the filter of all things work together for our good. To take that to an even higher level, can we find gratitude for all things that happen to us, knowing that whatever happens in the final tally of our lives, it is for our good. God has set up all the things that we need to overcome the challenges in our lives. We have to decide that we are going to walk this path and put forth the effort it takes to follow God. There are rewards for overcoming challenges. Failure teaches us what doesn't work, and hopefully wisdom for the future. Our brains respond whenever we do hard things to make it a little easier the next time. God gives us support through his Spirit and divine intervention. Our spiritual and physical families support and encourage us. Along with those trials comes the sweetness of God's mercy, love, and blessings. The challenges are to make us strong, to make us better, to make us holy for living in the kingdom of God. So I'll open up for questions or comments. Yes, Keith?
Shirley, I couldn't quite make out what that word was. Could you spell it for me?
Which
The
word?
that describes a love of your faith. What?
Okay.
How do you spell that?
I'll have to look it up unless you know Cynthia, you could tell him.
I don't know the Latin spelling.
Oh, no, I just have the English. I'll look it up and give it to you. I can't think of, I have to find it.
Thank you.
Any other comments?
Yeah, I just Googled that. I don't know how to pronounce his last name either, but I've seen him, he's 3'3", demonstrate, seen him fall over and somehow managed to get back up. And he's evidently got 2 feet that are not quite level, but he can hop around. I've seen him go upstairs, do all kinds of stuff, but he's outspoken evangelical Christian as well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but I don't have a clue how to pronounce it.
Well, I looked it up, and I did a bad job of what I heard, but, okay, Keith, that word is A-M-O-R. A-M-O-R. And the second word is F as in Frank, F-A-T as in Tom, I. F-A-T-I.
Okay, thank you.
Anybody else?
Who was the author of that? What was his name?
The author of,
The book on
There are no problems, only choices.
okay, I'll have to look that one up too.
It's right before a more update.
Oh, I just put that one down. Oh, here it is, right before, okay. Okay, it was Eric, E-R-I-C-K, E-R-I-C-K, and then C-L-O-W-A-R-D. C-L-O-W-A-R-D. Okay,
Thank you.
Shirley, I just wanted to thank you for the seminar. It was really encouraging,
Good.
especially at times that have come. So I just want to thank you for this.
Well, thank you. Yeah, I started this weeks ago, way before these hurricanes came through, and I'm like, it's just that those are gotta be so hard. Okay, anybody else? Oh, Keith.
How do you motivate yourself if you're unmotivated?
I don't know the official thing, but there's times when I'm not motivated, and if I just, like, if I have paperwork to do, if I just sit down at my desk, I can start. Something else I read, because I have a difficulty with going to the gym. And so this particular article had said, just go out the door. Make that first step. Come back in if you want, but go out the door. Then you can go out the door and sit in your vehicle and come back in. It starts training you. So that's just a little thing I read that was interesting. I haven't applied it yet.
I am a habitual procrastinator and slow starter. Once I get started, I'm generally fine. And I actually enjoy it, the challenge, what I'm doing. But Diane can tell you, this guy here, getting him moving on something that he wants to do is like pulling teeth with a toothpick. So, I've always been like that. I'm not bragging on myself, there's nothing to brag about. It's actually debilitating, to be quite honest with you. And I'll tell you the reason, you said a couple of things that really resonated with me. And one thing that really resonated with me was almost a euphoria when you've accomplished that task, when you got it done. I even get a kick out of drawing a line on a piece of paper over something that I've done. You
Oh,
know
yeah.
what I'm saying?
Yes.
And I remember Cynthia saying one time that she actually would do she'd have a list, and then she would think of another thing to do, and she would do it, and she didn't know what was done. She'd go back and write it on her list, and then so she could draw a line through it.
Yeah,
And I just think that's
it is a real thing, Keith. I think if you took
that's
show of
very
hands,
interesting that's the way that we're wired.
but it's encouraging. See, you can look back and see what you did.
Yeah.
But the one thing that if you could learn, and this is for me too, if you can just do something, if you just make yourself go where that project is, or set the tools, do something, sometimes that just kicks you in to start. But,
Yeah, I never want to quit. Once I start, then Diane said, it's time to eat. An hour later, food's cold in there, she's ate and doing something else, and then I finally come in.
right,
So it's the weirdest thing, but it's the way I'm wired, and it's not a good thing. It really is not a good thing. So,
Okay.
But thank you on that. I will do that. I will try and see if I
Okay.
can just do one little thing to get started.
yeah. Okay, so Troy, and then I think you had your hand, Troy?
No, you can pass on me, I was gonna,
Okay, I think,
never mind.
I was gonna, Keith, just ask you, are you more motivated by, external competition? If somebody else is doing it, you wanna compete against them? Are you more motivated internally where you're competing against yourself?
Internally, no doubt
Yeah.
about it.
So sometimes it's just a matter of setting a goal for yourself. And like Shirley said, little goals, attainable goals to get you moving.
yeah, okay,
Thank you.
I'm not Lisa, were you?
No,
Oh, it was, okay, Naomi, and then Ron.
So I liked earlier what you said about doing the things that you do not want to do, which is why I don't believe in motivation. If you really want to get things done all the time and do it consistently, it's just consistency, it's not motivation. People who tend to talk about motivation all the time don't do as much because they're waiting for that spark and that time that they can get up and do something. It's not about that, it's about getting up when you don't want to get up.
Right.
At that very moment, whenever you feel like you're not going to get anything done, that you're not a good person, that you're not motivated, that you're not strong, you have to get up and do it then. Because if you can do something at your worst, imagine how good you can do it at your greatest.
Yes, very good. Ron?
Yeah, I just wanted to emphasize what Keith said, because I've been this way all my life. Getting started is a problem, but then once I start, I don't want to quit. But what you said is very, very true. Just pick out a little part of what you gotta do. You don't even think about the whole job. If I think about I have to paint the whole side of the house today, that's really overwhelming. But if I decide, I'm just gonna go over here, get the paintbrush and put it where I need it to be, and you get started,
Right.
that changes everything. So what you said is
Right.
really true. I
Yeah.
had experienced it.
Okay, good. Anyone else? Okay. All right, well, thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Dahl.